I'll never forget the look on Bruce's face when I told him the new vendor's security was a dumpster fire wrapped in ransomware. He didn't get angry. He didn't argue with my findings. He smiled. "Julian," he said, leaning back in his $2,000 ergonomic chair, "you're being dramatic again. This is a $15 million contract. It's already signed. Before we get started, drop a comment telling me what time you're watching this right now. And if you've ever been ignored by someone who thought they knew better than you, hit that subscribe button." Today's story? A $60 million lesson about what happens when ego meets incompetence. Let's get into it. We were in his corner office, floor-to-ceiling windows, downtown skyline, the faint smell of cold brew and expensive leather. The whole executive fantasy package. I was standing there with my laptop, showing him screenshots of their infrastructure held together with duct tape and prayer. "Bruce, their admin passwords are literally password 123. I found 6 critical vulnerabilities in 20 minutes. Then I'm sure they'll fix them," he said, dismissing me with a wave. We go live Monday. I'm Julian Walter, Lead Cybersecurity Architect at Dalton and West Financial. Emphasis on was. I'd been at Dalton and West for 9 years. Started as a junior network admin, worked my way up through every unglamorous layer of IT infrastructure until I became the person they called when the digital sky was falling. I wasn't the loudest person in the room. I didn't do the TED Talk circuit or post thought leadership on LinkedIn. I built firewalls. I ran penetration tests. I wrote incident response protocols that sat in binders collecting dust until someone's laptop got crypto-locked at 2 a.m. My job was simple: keep the bad guys out. And I was good at it. 9 years, 0 successful breaches. 0 ransomware infections. 0 data leaks that made the news. My mentor, Catherine Walsh, had been the one to promote me to lead architect 3 years earlier. She was old school IT, paranoid in the best way, the kind of person who unplugged her Alexa and covered her laptop camera with electrical tape. "Julian," she told me when I got promoted, "you're going to meet a lot of executives who think security is optional. Your job is to make it mandatory. Even when they hate you for it." She'd retired 8 months ago. Her replacement was Bruce Hartman. And Bruce didn't think security was optional. He thought it was theatrical. Bruce Hartman, 39, Chief Technology Officer. Stanford computer science degree that he mentioned in every meeting. Former VP at a Bay Area startup that had been acquired for $200 million. Never mind that it was acquired specifically because the company was bleeding talent and needed a corporate overlord to survive. Bruce wore Allbirds and Patagonia vests. He said things like, "Move fast and break things," unironically. He'd installed a standing desk that converted into a treadmill, and he took Zoom calls while walking at 2 miles per hour, slightly out of breath like a man running from accountability. His philosophy: security is important, but it can't be a bottleneck. Translation: security was important until it interfered with his timelines. He'd been CTO for 7 months. In that time he'd overridden 3 of my security recommendations, reduced the IT security budget by 18%, hired his college roommate as innovation strategist. And now he just signed a $15 million vendor contract without letting me audit their systems first. The vendor was called CloudSync Pro, a third-party payment processor that would handle all of our client transaction data. Credit cards, bank accounts, social security numbers, everything. I'd asked for 2 weeks to audit their infrastructure before signing. Bruce had given me 4 hours. What I found in those 4 hours made my hands go cold. Security gap? This was a canyon. A chasm. The Grand Canyon of cybersecurity disasters. Unpatched servers running Windows Server 2008, end of life in 2015, no multi-factor authentication on admin accounts, database backups sitting in publicly accessible cloud storage. Literally anyone with the link could download our entire client list. SSL certificates expired 3 months ago. When I saw password 123 as their admin credential, I actually laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was so catastrophically stupid that my brain couldn't process it any other way. And Bruce had already signed the contract. I walked out of Bruce's office with my laptop still showing the vulnerability report. 2 thoughts crystallized in my mind. 1. Bruce was going to deploy CloudSync Pro no matter what I said. The contract was signed. The press release was drafted. The board was already celebrating this strategic partnership. 2. When this exploded, and I needed documentation proving I'd tried to stop it. I didn't know it yet, but that documentation would be the difference between me going down with the ship and me watching it sink from a lifeboat. I opened a new encrypted folder on my personal drive. I named it CWay CloudSync Disaster.txt. Ever had a boss ignore a massive red flag like this? Drop a comment below. I want to hear your story. I went back to my desk, tucked in the corner of the IT floor, surrounded by servers humming like a mechanical heartbeat, and did what I always do when corporate stupidity makes me nauseous. I dug deeper. I pulled up CloudSync Pro's public GitHub repository. Open source components they'd used to build their platform. Last commit, 14 months ago. I checked their status page for security updates. Last update, 9 months ago. I ran a simple port scan against their API endpoint. Nothing illegal, just knocking on the front door to see what answered. Results loaded in 3.2 seconds. Ports 22, 23, 3389 wide open. Telnet and RDP accessible from the public internet. Translation: their back doors were unlocked and visible to anyone with an internet connection. My hands started shaking. This wasn't just negligence. This was criminal. The contract Bruce had signed sat buried on page 47, Appendix C. Vendor certifies compliance with PCI DSS Level 1 security standards and SOC 2 Type 2 audit completion. PCI DSS Level 1 meant they were supposedly secure enough to handle credit card data for companies processing over 6 million transactions annually. CloudSync Pro's compliance certifications were next on my list. Their SOC 2 audit was dated February 2021. 3 years old. SOC 2 audits expire after 12 months. Their PCI DSS certificate? Issued by a firm I'd never heard of. I googled the auditor's name. The website was a GoDaddy template that looked like it was built in 2009. The Contact Us page had a Gmail address. They'd faked their certifications. I stared at the GoDaddy template on my screen. Bruce had bet $15 million and 340,000 client accounts on a vendor that had literally forged their security credentials. One more check. Have I been pawned? A database of leaked passwords from previous breaches. I entered admin@cloudsyncpro.com. Result: found in 3 data breaches. 2019 collection number 1 mega breach, 2020 comb, compilation of many breaches. 2022 RockU 2021 leak. Their admin email, the one that would have root access to our entire client database, had been compromised in 3 separate breaches. And they were still using it. I remembered the first meeting with Bruce 6 weeks after Catherine retired. We need to accelerate vendor onboarding, he'd said. 2-week security audits are killing our competitive advantage. 2 weeks is the minimum for infrastructure review, I'd replied. We're handling financial data. If we get breached. Julian, fear-based thinking is why IT has a reputation for being obstructionist. He'd smiled that condescending smile. I trust vendors to manage their own security. That's why we pay them. You trust them? I trust the market. If they were insecure, they'd be out of business. I'd wanted to tell him that breached companies don't die immediately. They die slowly, bleeding customer data and lawsuits. But Bruce didn't want education. He wanted compliance. I sat there staring at my screen, CloudSync's fake certificates on one monitor, their exposed ports on the other, and felt the weight of 9 years of reputation settling on my shoulders. If I stayed quiet and this went sideways, I was complicit. If I pushed back harder and Bruce fired me, the deployment would happen anyway, just without anyone watching the door. I opened my encrypted folder. I started downloading everything. The vulnerability scan results, CloudSync's fake compliance certificates, email chains where I'd requested more audit time. Bruce response: move forward. Launch can't be delayed. Their exposed database backup URLs. I also did something I'd never done before. I googled SEC Whistleblower cybersecurity breach. That night, I stayed until midnight running automated scans against CloudSync's infrastructure. I found 23 critical vulnerabilities. Any one of them could be exploited by a halfway competent hacker. At 11:47 p.m., I sent an email to Bruce with the subject line: urgent, CloudSync security review critical findings. I attached my 47-page technical analysis. By 6:15 a.m. he'd responded: Julian, I appreciate your diligence, but we've already committed to this partnership. Let's discuss your concerns about perfect being the enemy of good in our 1:1 next week. Please focus on integration support for Monday's launch. B. He dismissed 23 critical vulnerabilities as perfectionism. I forwarded his email to my personal account. Then I did something I'd never done in 9 years at Dalton and West. I googled whistleblower attorney cybersecurity breach. The first result was David Kong, Georgetown Law, specialized in corporate negligence cases. His website tagline: when doing the right thing costs you everything. I hit contact us at 12:47 a.m. 4 days after I sent that email, I was called to HR. Bruce was already there, sitting next to Jennifer from Human Resources. Jennifer looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. Mr. Walter, Jennifer began, sliding a document across the table, we've received concerns about your communication style with leadership. Performance improvement plan. 30 days. Communication style? I repeated. Bruce leaned forward, hands clasped. Julian, I value your technical expertise. But when you send alarmist emails at midnight flagging issues that our vendor partners have already addressed internally, it creates unnecessary friction. They haven't addressed anything. Their systems are being monitored by their internal security team, Bruce interrupted smoothly. I spoke with their CTO personally. He assured me they take security seriously. Did you ask him why his admin password was in 3 data breaches? Bruce's smile tightened. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Hostility toward strategic partners. I went back to my desk and tried to access the Cloud Sync integration logs. Error, access denied. Contact system administrator. I checked my admin privileges on our firewall. User credentials downgraded to read-only. Executive authorization required for elevation. My email pinged. IT service desk automated ticket. Per CTO Hartmann directive. Julian Walter system access modified to standard user permissions. Vendor integration monitoring reassigned to Cloud Sync Pro internal team. Admin restoration requires executive approval. Bruce had locked me out of the systems I was supposed to protect. I pulled up my encrypted backup drive. Still intact. Still safe. He thought he was silencing me. He'd just given me evidence of retaliation. I met David Kong at a coffee shop downtown. Mid-40s, Georgetown law, specialized in corporate whistleblower cases. I handed him the encrypted drive. He scrolled for 90 seconds. Looked up. Julian, you understand what you have here? Evidence my boss ignored security warnings? Evidence of willful negligence, retaliation against an IT professional raising compliance concerns, and potential SEC violations if client data gets breached. He tapped the screen. This email where he tells you to stop flagging vulnerabilities? That's consciousness of guilt. This PIP 4 days after your report? Textbook retaliation. So what do? We wait. We let CloudSync go live. We let the breach happen because it will. Then we document that Dalton and West was warned, ignored the warnings, and punished you for raising them. And if they fire me first? He smiled. Then we add wrongful termination and nail them for retaliation before the breach even hits. CloudSync Pro launched on a Monday morning. Bruce sent a company-wide email with a rocket emoji. Rocket excited to announce CloudSync integration is live. 2,847 transactions processed in the first hour. This is what happens when we trust our partners and move at startup speed. Onward. I screenshot it. Added it to the evidence folder. David had set up monitoring for any mentions of Dalton and West on dark web forums where stolen credentials get traded. Monday, nothing. Tuesday, nothing. Wednesday, a single post on a Russian forum, DNW Financial, looking for access will pay. Thursday morning, 3:47 a.m., my phone rang. It was the overnight SOC analyst. Julian, we have a problem. Someone's downloading our entire client database. And it's coming from inside CloudSync servers. I was in the office by 4:30 a.m. The security operations center looked like a war room. Screens everywhere showing red alerts, analysts frantically typing, the smell of stale coffee and panic. Bruce arrived at 5:15 a.m. in Lululemon shorts and an Apple Watch, looking confused rather than concerned, like this was an inconvenient interruption to his morning Peloton routine. What's the situation? He asked. I pulled up the breach timeline on the main monitor. At 3:34 a.m., someone accessed CloudSync's admin panel using compromised credentials. They've been exfiltrating our client database for the last 2 hours. So far, approximately 180,000 records have been copied to an external server in Romania. 9 years. 9 years of perfect security, and Bruce had destroyed it in 2 weeks. Can we stop it? We could if I still had admin access to terminate the API connection. But you reassigned that to CloudSync's internal team. I looked at him. I've been trying to reach their on-call engineer for 40 minutes. No response. Bruce went pale. How bad is this? Credit cards, bank routing numbers, social security numbers, home addresses. Everything. By 7 a.m., the general counsel and CEO were in the SOC. Jennifer Walsh, our CEO, looked at the breach dashboard with the expression of someone watching their retirement fund evaporate. Walk me through how this happened, she said. I pulled up my timeline. May 3rd. I identified 23 critical vulnerabilities in CloudSync's infrastructure during my initial audit. I requested 2 weeks to complete security review before contract signing. May 4th, Bruce approved the contract and denied my request. Said we were moving at startup speed. May 7th, I sent a 47-page report detailing the vulnerabilities, including compromised admin credentials and fake compliance certifications. May 11th, Bruce placed me on a performance improvement plan and revoked my admin access. May 15th, CloudSync went live. May 18th, today. Breach detected at 3:34 a.m. Jennifer looked at Bruce. You received a 47-page security report and ignored it? The report was overly cautious, Bruce stammered. CloudSync assured me their internal team. Their internal team, I interrupted, hasn't answered their phone in 3 hours. Because they're probably asleep in Bangalore, and nobody set up 24/7 monitoring. Our general counsel, Robert Park, had pulled Bruce's emails overnight. Bruce, you told the board that Julian had signed off on CloudSync security. Is that accurate? Bruce shifted. He raised some theoretical concerns but nothing that warranted. Robert slid a printout across the table. This is Julian's email from May 7th. Subject line, urgent, CloudSync security review critical findings. You responded, and I quote, let's discuss your concerns about perfect being the enemy of good. I was encouraging pragmatism. You were ignoring a threat assessment from your lead security architect. Robert pulled out another document. And this is the PIP you issued 4 days later, citing hostility toward strategic partners. Jennifer's voice was ice. You retaliated against him for doing his job? Bruce's mouth opened. Close. No words came out. Robert wasn't finished. IT had recovered Bruce's Slack messages with the CloudSync sales rep. May 2nd, 11:47 p.m. Bruce, my security team is going to want to audit your infrastructure. Can you send me something official looking that says you're compliant? Doesn't need to be detailed, just enough to satisfy the checklist mentality. CloudSync rep. Attached are our PCI DSS and SOC2 docs. FYI, the SOC2 is from 2021, but most clients don't notice the date. Bruce, perfect. That'll work. He'd known the certifications were expired. He'd asked for fake documentation. And then he'd signed a $15 million contract anyway. Jennifer stood up. Bruce, you're suspended effective immediately. Pending investigation. Security will escort you out. Jennifer, this is an overreaction. 340,000 clients just had their data stolen because you ignored your security architect to hit a deadline. Get out. 3 days later, the board of directors convened an emergency session. I'd never been in the executive boardroom before. 23rd floor, floor-to-ceiling glass overlooking the financial district. The table was some exotic wood that probably cost more than my annual salary. 8 board members sat on one side. Bruce sat on the other, flanked by 2 attorneys who looked like they billed $800 an hour. I sat at the end with David Kong and Robert Park. Catherine Walsh, my old mentor, had been brought back as an interim board advisor. She'd flown in from Seattle specifically for this. Jennifer Walsh, our CEO, opened the meeting. We're here to determine liability and next steps for the CloudSync breach. Mr. Hartman, Mr. Walter, you've both submitted testimony. Bruce, you first. Bruce stood. He'd prepared a presentation. What we're dealing with, Bruce began, is a sophisticated nation-state attack that exploited a zero-day vulnerability in CloudSync's infrastructure. No amount of preparation could have. Catherine interrupted. Bruce, I'm 64 years old and I've been in IT since before you were born. Don't bullshit me. Was this a zero-day? Bruce hesitated. The specifics are still being investigated. Yes or no? Was this a zero-day vulnerability? Silence. No, Bruce finally admitted. It was a credential compromise. And did Julian warn you about compromised credentials? He mentioned. Yes or no? Yes. Catherine turned to me. Julian, walk us through what you found. Assume we're intelligent but not technical. I stood. No slides. No theatrics. For 9 years, I'd been the person nobody listened to until something broke. Today they were going to listen. Just facts. On May 3rd, I completed a 4-hour preliminary audit of CloudSync Pro, the maximum time I was given before contract signing. I found 23 critical vulnerabilities including Admin credentials exposed in 3 previous data breaches, expired security certifications from 2021, unpatched servers running end-of-life operating systems, database backups in publicly accessible storage. I recommended a 2-week comprehensive audit before signing. The request was denied. One of the board members, a woman named Patricia, spoke up. What did Mr. Hartman say when you presented these findings? He said I was being overly cautious. That perfect was the enemy of good. That we needed to move at startup speed. And then? 4 days after submitting my report, I was placed on a performance improvement plan for hostility toward strategic partners, and my admin access was revoked. Did the breach happen exactly the way you predicted? I pulled up the forensic analysis on the monitor. Yes. The attacker used the compromised admin credentials I'd flagged on May 7th. They accessed CloudSync's database at 3:34 a.m. on May 18th. They exfiltrated 340,000 client records through the exact vulnerability I'd documented. Patricia looked at Bruce with barely concealed disgust. So he told you exactly what would happen, and you did it anyway? Bruce stood, voice shaking. This is revisionist history. Julian is bitter because I challenged his risk-averse mindset. Robert Park stood, holding a document. Bruce, we've reviewed your Slack messages with CloudSync sales team. You specifically asked for expired compliance documents to satisfy the checklist mentality. Bruce's face drained of color. You knew their certifications were fake, Jennifer said, her voice flat. You signed the contract anyway. And when Julian tried to stop you, you tried to fire him. Catherine leaned forward. Bruce, how much is this breach going to cost us? Our outside counsel spoke up. Between regulatory fines, class action settlements, forensic investigation, credit monitoring for affected clients, and reputational damage? Conservative estimate, $45 to $60 million. And if we'd followed Julian's recommendation? Catherine asked. 2-week delay. CloudSync fails the audit. We terminate the contract. Total cost, $400,000 in sunk integration work. The math was brutal. Bruce had gambled $60 million to save 2 weeks. Jennifer stood. Bruce Hartman, you are terminated for cause, effective immediately. Your severance is forfeited per the gross negligence clause in your employment contract. You are also personally named in our lawsuit against CloudSync Pro for fraudulent misrepresentation. Bruce looked around the table. Nobody met his eyes. You're making a mistake, he said, voice cracking. I was trying to move this company forward. You moved us forward into a $60 million lawsuit, Jennifer said. Security will escort you out. 2 guards appeared at the door. Bruce left without his presentation. That was 2 years ago. Bruce Hartman never worked in tech again. When you're terminated for cause, lose your severance, and get personally named in a $60 million lawsuit, your LinkedIn becomes a graveyard. He tried consulting. His first potential client Googled his name and found the headlines. Former CTO ignored security warnings, cost company $60 million in breach. He tried pivoting to cybersecurity advisory. The irony was apparently lost on him. It wasn't lost on the industry. Nobody called. He tried a SaaS startup in Austin. They rescinded the offer after their due diligence turned up the lawsuit depositions where he'd admitted under oath that he'd requested fake compliance documents. Last I heard, he was doing fractional CTO work for early-stage startups. The kind that can't afford to be picky about their executives' track records. His Twitter bio still says, Technology Leader, Innovation Catalyst, Stanford CS. His last post about moving fast and breaking things has 47 comments, all of them sarcastic. Dalton and West settled the class action lawsuit for $47 million. David Kong represented the plaintiffs. Yes, I connected them with him, and yes, watching him negotiate was deeply satisfying. Every affected client received 3 years of free credit monitoring, identity theft insurance, direct compensation averaging $850 per person, written apology from Jennifer Walsh personally. We terminated the CloudSync contract immediately. Not paused for security improvements. Terminated. We rebuilt our payment processing infrastructure in-house. It took 14 months and cost $8.3 million in development. But it worked. And more importantly, I controlled every line of code. Jennifer promoted me to Chief Information Security Officer 3 months after Bruce was terminated. Salary, $290,000 plus equity. I report directly to the board. I have final authority over any vendor contract that touches client data. Catherine came out of retirement to mentor me through the transition. You saved this company, Julian, she told me over coffee. Don't let them forget it. The board gave me something else. A clause in my contract stating that any executive who overrides my security recommendations without documented board approval is subject to immediate termination. Bruce's failure became my insurance policy. Here's what I learned. Documentation is survival. I documented everything: vulnerability scans, email warnings, meeting notes, timestamps. When Bruce tried to rewrite history, I had forensic evidence proving otherwise. Expertise beats charisma. Bruce had the Stanford degree, the startup credentials, the TED Talk confidence. I had 9 years of unglamorous security work protecting the company. When retaliated against, lawyer up immediately. The truth, backed by evidence and a good attorney, is worth about $60 million in avoided catastrophe. I'm still CISO at Dalton and West. We haven't had a successful breach in 2 years. Our security posture is now considered industry-leading. Last month, a junior analyst named Maya flagged a potential vulnerability in a vendor's API. The entire executive team stopped their weekly meeting to listen to her presentation. She's 24. She reminds me of myself 9 years ago, technical, thorough, terrified of speaking up. When she finished, I said, "This is excellent work, Maya. We're delaying the vendor integration until they patch this. Thank you for protecting our clients." She looked relieved, almost tearful. Jennifer, our CEO, nodded. This is exactly why we have a security team. Maya just saved us from becoming another headline. Bruce would have called her paranoid. We call her essential. Remember what Bruce said in his office that day? "You're being dramatic." Turns out I was being accurate. And that accuracy was worth $60 million. The company paid $60 million to learn what I tried to teach them for free. Security isn't optional. It's not a bottleneck. It's not paranoia. It's the difference between staying in business and becoming a cautionary tale. $60 million. That's what it cost my company to learn what I tried to teach them for free. If you've ever been the person who was right but nobody listened, hit subscribe. Drop a comment telling me what time you're watching and your own "I told you so" moment. Because sometimes being right isn't enough. You need receipts. See you in the next one.